Hello, hi, how are you? I'm John, and I am back with one more book that I was recently able to finish. And this book is on the origin of species. Earlier, as in my previous video, I mentioned about this book, and I tried reading it, but I couldn't get succeeded because at that time I just put it down and I thought it would be difficult. But when I picked it up again and I tried reading it, this book really made sense. And it was not that much difficult because this edition is just young reader's edition. This is always, this reflection is, I don't know how to get rid of this. And this edition is a young reader's edition, and the concepts are quite simplified in comparison to the original book of Charles Darwin. And first of all, about the title, this the origin of species. In this book, Charles Darwin actually didn't talk about the origin. I don't think he ever talked about the origin of the species. He mostly talked about the evolution of the species from one step to the another, and kind of stages. And there are different stages, and species develop further and further, and they adjust in the new environment, and they advance, they get modified. And he called this phenomena, I remember, descent with modification. So the first concept in this book is, let me tell you before that, this book is about uh, plants and animal, and moreover about the living things in general. He Charles Darwin didn't talk about the human beings much or at all. Mostly he gave the examples of plants and trees and some animals and birds, and very rarely about the humans. The first and the most important concept in this book is natural selection. He has defined, and as per my interpretation, he has defined natural selection in quite a different ways throughout the book. But I think natural selection is the preservation of organisms through their modifications over the organisms that do not have modifications, and the organisms that do not get adjusted with the environment or the physical condition. They will be perished or they will be extinct very soon, and new organisms with latest modifications and variations, they will take their place, and this circle goes on and on. And ultimately a species becomes as advanced as humans are. So it is very interesting to know that, like all organisms, like whether plants or species, are developed from a single ancestor. And there were so many different organisms and species. Some are now extinct, like dinosaurs. And it is said that there are five extinctions, and we are in the phase of sixth extinction. It is just said that. And there is one more concept of transitional forms. Like Darwin was, I am sure, was a very interesting man. Throughout the book, he always defended his theory. He always gave examples and defended his theory, and sometimes he challenged his theory as well and refuted his points, and just got rid of his ideas, and again came back with some other inputs as well. And there were basically 4 points he defended, which I seriously can't recollect properly. If I do recollect, it will be with blunders that I don't want to commit. But there were 4 points, and mostly throughout the book, he defended his points of view. And he also mentioned about the other uh, scientists' theories as well. And there was one more scientist. His name was Alfred Russel Wallace, if I remember him correctly. Uh, Before publishing this book, Darwin, that Russell, uh, he also came up with the same kind of theory as Darwin's had. So Darwin's had read his manuscript, and after reading his manuscript, immediately Darwin published his book. As you can see that when Darwin started his research, and when he was in America, and when he came back from America in 1839 in Europe, I think he was from UK, I'm not sure, but he didn't publish his book in 1839. He was done with his research. After 20 years in 1859, as per my memory, he published his book. And before publishing his book, he read Wallace's manuscript, and he had found the same theory in Russell's manuscript. And he thought that before Russell published his work, he should publish his theory. Otherwise, Russell would publish it and he would get all the fame. So this was the reason, first of all, that Charles Darwin came up with the publication of this book. And what about this edition, particularly about this particular edition, this is young readers edition. As I mentioned earlier, it is very interesting because if you read the original version, that will be quite difficult. And in this book, like you see, as per the authors, you will see so many illustrations which makes the reading of this book very smooth and easy. And there are some definitions of difficult terms in this book which will guide you throughout the book. So this edition is very helpful if, like me, you don't have any science background, and if, like me, you want to learn about scientific concepts. I always found learning science book very daunting because of my non-scientific background. But as I was curious, I had to find a way to read it, and I got this book at the right time. And I think this book was very, very interesting, and it covered almost everything. And after reading this book seriously, I have a different opinion about so many things, about species, about plants, animals, and humans. And when I see human beings, seriously, don't judge me, I hope you won't. When I see human beings, and when I see their behavior, when I try to judge them, and when I see that every human being is trying to differentiate him or herself with the others, it is just according to the laws of nature, because variations is natural. The more variations an organism have, the more chances of survival that organism will have. This is just the simple law of nature. And one more interesting thing is that when Darwin came up with his theory, he said that there is a very interesting bond with the species, the way they interact with each other, and the way an offspring is attached with the parents, and he called this phenomena is inherent inheritance, how certain features are found in the offsprings. But interestingly as well, Darwin was unaware of the concepts of genes or DNA. The invention of this concept came later on after his death. And one more interesting concept is, as I mentioned earlier, the transitional forms. Darwin was very much scared of the critics that, as he mentioned, that humans developed in, or any other organism is developed in stages, and as new species developed and the older species is in got instinct, and like this, he thought that, like, these transitional forms are very difficult to find in fossils, and if scientists are not able to find it, his theory is difficult to prove. This was the only challenge that he faced throughout this book. But after the publication of this book, and after a few decades, and through as the archaeological or geological research went on, scientists came up with the fossils, and they found those transitional forms which Darwin mentioned. And also, in this book, Darwin rejected the religious view of independent creation of species, and he gave so many different proofs in this book that I can't cover seriously in this single video. And this book, I believe, is very important for further readings, as this is the foundational book for further concepts. I seriously would recommend this book for anyone who ever has any interest in science reading. This is a must read, and I hope you should definitely pick it up and try to read it. I think this is it, and I will cover some other book in my next video. Till then, I hope you have a good time. Thank you. Bye bye. Take care.